Welcome to Conversations Live. For more than a decade, we've brought you the best in books, entertainment, and current events. When the movers and shakers of the world have something to say to you, they say it to us first. Now, here's your host, Cyrus Webb.
And welcome back, everyone, to Conversations Live. I'm your host, Cyrus Webb. Glad you all could join us once again, whether you're tuning in on the radio dial in Mississippi at WYAD 94.1 FM. We welcome you all back to our program, as well as tuning in through our online affiliates around the world. We're glad to have all of you with us as well. Hernan Lopez is making his first appearance on our program today to talk to us not only about what it's been like for him to see the success of his company, Wondery Podcast Network, but also what it's been like for him to be able to build a career for himself in the visual platform and now to be known for the work he's been able to do since 2016 and podcasting as well. Now, the great thing about this conversation with Hernan is that I actually had a chance in October to speak with Chris Godford, who has a program that is part of Wondery, and that is Dirty John. You all probably remember that conversation. We'll talk to Hernan about the success of Dirty John, but also some of the other platforms that you all can be able to enjoy from Wondery as well. Hernan, hello to you and welcome to the program.
Thank you so much, Cyrus. It's a pleasure to be with you.
Oh, the pleasure is definitely all mine. You know, I think the great thing about the work that you've been able to do, and it's something we talk about a lot on this program, is, of course, the way that people are gravitating toward voice and the ease of it and the way they're able to use it in their lives. This is something that you recognize, Hernan, and have been able to use. What has it been like for you already to see the success that Wondery has had?
It's been such an incredible ride to be able to get into this medium right at the founding stage, honestly, of how when people are starting to discover podcasts and starting to rediscover their love of storytelling in the sound form. And in just under 2 years, we've been able to create this company that has now 55 shows, is reaching over 25 million downloads every month. And we've been able to connect with listeners from all over the world with a combination of shows about entertainment, true crime, history, personal growth, and tell stories in a way that I hadn't had the chance to tell when I was working in television. That's been very exciting.
Right. You know, what I thought about when I was, of course, prepping for your segment, Hernan, is that there are two things I definitely want to talk to you about. Of course, the success of Wondery, which is so great. We're going to get more into that. But also the courage that it takes to be able to have a successful career and then to be able to walk away from that and to be able to do something else that you believe in. I mean, as an entrepreneur, as a businessman, how difficult was that for you?
It was very difficult. But you also need to understand I had spent 18 years at Fox, which is an amazing company. By the time I left, the division I was running included all the international channels, all the channels, television channels like Fox and National Geographic and FX and Fox Sports outside of the U.S. But for about half of that time, I kept daydreaming of being an entrepreneur, of having my own company. And you know that in television it's really difficult to start your own company unless you have an immense amount of money. And also I was worried about what could I do in television that hadn't been done before. Whereas in podcasts, which was a medium that I was familiar with as a consumer, it's a medium that I listen to a lot, I could see very clearly so many things that hadn't been done in podcasts before, and that's what I set out to do.
Right. And that's definitely what you've been able to do. I mentioned, of course, Dirty John, which is a captivating podcast that has really drawn people in. Could you have imagined, though, Hernan, when you began Wondery, that you would be able to have the success you've had so quickly?
I was, like any entrepreneur, needs to have a little bit of a dream that is bigger than what you'll achieve. So in your dream of dreams, you always hope that you're going to succeed. And I am very happy with the shows that we made, and I wish we had been able to get at Dirty John in year one, not in year two. But I'm really happy with what we've been able to get, the traction that we've been able to get with listeners.
Right. And I think the other great thing that I noticed when I was, preparing for this segment, Hernan, is that you've been very animated and very excited about being able to get others to connect with you. Talk to us about that interaction you've been able to have, not only, of course, with your listeners, but also welcoming other podcasters to see if it might be a good fit for them when it comes to the network.
One of the reasons why we've been able to grow so quickly is that, unlike other networks, we don't create all of the shows in-house. I think that creating all the shows in-house is a great model, but it's a model that will limit just the sheer volume. You only have two hands. They only have 24 hours, and so it would limit how many shows we could connect with. We can put in front of listeners. So our model includes the Wondery originals, in which you will see the Wondery logo, and in this case the Los Angeles Times logo, and then a larger network of partner shows that are created by independent podcasters like yourself, people that are sometimes working a day job, and then at night or on the weekends they come in and create their own podcast, and they start with maybe 100,000 listeners a month. When they come to us, they have a little bit more than that, and in 3 months, 6 months, a year, we grow their audiences and we put them in front of advertisers, and we help them realizing some of them have become full-time podcasters.
Right. And that is the thing. And I think that's why people are so impressed, Hernan, not only with you, but also with the model that Wondery has set up, because it definitely invites others to be able to share their own creativity as well. We're going to talk more about that programming. I want to say for those who are just tuning in, either on the radio side or online, you're listening to Conversations Live. We're excited to welcome Hernan Lopez to our program today. He's the founder and CEO of Wondery Podcasting Network. We're going to tell you a little bit later. You can stay connected with Wondery and find out more information about the shows that we're discussing. The other great thing about what you've been able to do, and I mentioned it earlier, and going from television, as you mentioned, now of course to podcasting, is that you bring all of that experience. I think for myself, it's been really interesting for me, especially the past couple of years, Hernan, to hear people talking so much more about podcasting, about the power of voice. Do you think that's just going to be the natural progression, that people are looking for a way where they can multitask, be able to do other things, and still be able to enjoy programs that they like?
I think that's part of it. The shows that we make tend to require a lot of listeners' attention. So because we specialize in that very curated form of storytelling, many of our shows are serialized. And for those to fully capture all of what's happening, you really do need to be paying attention. One perfect example is Inside the Exorcist, a show created by Mark Ramsey with us, about the making of the Exorcist movie, a movie that itself was so troubled with so many accidents in set and deaths, and the movie almost didn't get made. And when listeners start listening to episode 1 of Inside the Exorcist, they really get immersed into the story and the story behind the story. And in order to fully appreciate it, the best way to do it is with your headphones, high-quality headphones, listening while doing nothing else. You should try it, and all your listeners should try it. It is it's an experience that is rarely seen in other podcasts.
Right. That's a really good point. And I think, too, you mentioned earlier about what you're able to do in getting those podcasters, in front of not only, of course, advertisers, but also other partners. It's another thing people, when they go to the website, they're able to see. Talk to us about that experience for you to be able to do at this point, Hernan, to be able to have these partners that have come up and been able to work with you on making Wondery a success.
The very first one is called Real Crime Profile. It's a show hosted by Jim Clemente, a retired FBI profiler, Lisa Zambetti, who works with Jim on Criminal Minds, a television show, and Laura Richards, who's a Scotland Yard former investigator. And they had been creating the show for about 3 months. They started to analyze the Making a Murder documentary on Netflix, and then they moved on to the O.J. Simpson's documentary. The time they came to us, they already had significant audience, but they didn't have advertisers. And they helped us as their first show build expertise and connect with an audience in true crime. And as a result of having that first show, we were then able to secure other shows in the true crime space, but also we were able to grow their audience to the point where today they're one of the most widely recognized podcasts in the true crime space. And to give you a perfect example of how we do this, Dirty John had 6 episodes in which Chris Goffard wanted to tell the story, but we were very careful, he was very careful in not putting too much, almost any of his opinion, actually none of his opinion, into the story. But we knew that listeners, on the other hand, were really curious about the story behind the story. What was happening to Deborah? Why was Deborah being fooled? Who really John was, and why Tara and Jacqueline were reacting to John the way they did. So we created a series of 3 special episodes on Real Crime Profile, where the Real Crime Profile host analyzed from a behavioral analyst perspective John Meehan and the interaction with all the members of the Newell family in a way that we just didn't have the depth to do or the space to do it in Dirty John. And that's how we give listeners different angles to be exposed to the same story, and that's one of the ways in which we create a bigger space for the stories that we get in touch with.
Right. And another thing that I love, Hernan, is the audience participation. And one of the ways that this really comes out is with social media. People have been, of course, tagging Wondery there, especially on Twitter. Let's take that, where they can find you at Wondery Media, where people are actually being able to share about the different shows, talk about them there. When you see that type of engagement from the audience, does that, make you feel even more confident that you are doing exactly what you wanted to achieve in creating Wondery?
It is very satisfying. Every time that we get emails, and I read almost every email that comes from a listener directly to the Wondery page via our Contact Us page, we see just how much of an impact we're getting. We're getting very personal questions, and some of them we send directly to each of our shows. But we can tell that our listeners are paying attention. Another perfect example is a show called Tides of History by Patrick Whiteman, where listeners, it's a show about the rise of the modern world and the fall of the Roman Empire. And what Patrick does is very interesting. He helps listeners put themselves on the shoes of people at the time of the story we're telling about. So, for instance, if you listen to episode 1, it'll make you imagine that you're a merchant in a town in Germany in the year 1300, and this is happening to you. And by inviting listeners in that way, it makes it a lot more relatable, and that is reflected in the number and the quality of the questions that we get towards that show in particular.
Right. And I think that's the other big thing, and then other people are taking notice as well. I look at, when I was doing my prep work for this, Hernan, of course, The Guardian, talks about, the best podcast out there. And, of course, Dirty John being one of those that was being featured. And I think, it really goes to, so much of what has made Wondery a place for people to look. One of the things that was mentioned even at that time in that particular article from The Guardian was at that point it was over 5 million listens. That is, just remarkable, I think, for anything, for, not just podcasts, of course, these days for television, even to be able to get 5 million to be able to tune in to something. Does that make you even more optimistic, Hernan, as you're looking forward to what you have planned for 2018?
It is very, very rewarding, and I should say we're over 9 million listens now for Dirty John, and wow. This is a show that people keep listening for a long time. And obviously numbers are a great gauge of success, but sometimes there are shows that are very rewarding and satisfying to make and don't get those kind of numbers, but they'll get a significant traction. And we pay attention not only to the number of listeners that we get, but the number and quality of the reviews on iTunes, because that's when we know that we are really connecting with people and people are engaging in a significant way.
Right, and I think that's why, we've said on the program so often, reviews are so important. To be able to get that feedback from the audience definitely means a whole lot. Again, everyone, Hernan Lopez has been our guest. We're talking with him. He's not only the founder and CEO of Wondery, but been able to see firsthand how, this platform he's been able to build has been able to grow, and those who have been able to join him for sure. So there are 3 elements I want to talk about as we wrap up here, Hernan. Of course, the website is Wondery.com. That's WONDERY.com. wondery.com is where people can go. There they can, of course, be able to see the shows that are there. The other great thing is you share with them how they can be able to listen. I love the fact that as people are actually clicking on the shows, it shows them how they can listen to them. But I mentioned earlier the idea of being able to bring others in, and you have a section there for podcasters and creators, as well as if someone has an idea. So if someone is listening to our broadcast, or Hernan, and they think that they have something that might be of interest, is that the best place for them to go to be able to connect with you?
That is the best place. We have a page within Wondery.com for podcasters and creators, and that's where you would enter your contact information, how many downloads you have. We typically are looking at shows that have on the aggregate about 200,000 downloads per month, and those are the shows that our advertisers tend to look at as a threshold, and then we help them grow, we help them monetize, we help them sometimes giving them advice in areas that are beyond podcasting.
Right. Well, it's a great opportunity, and it's a great platform you've been able to build. Congratulations to you, Hernan. Again, everyone, Wondery.com is the place to be able to go. From there, you can be able to find them all over social media. The social media links on the bottom right of the website, so take advantage of that. And, Hernan, it goes without saying, you're welcome back here anytime. I look forward to speaking with you again.
All right. Thank you so much. It was such a pleasure to speak with you this afternoon.
The pleasure is definitely all mine. And we thank your audience for tuning in to another great segment of Conversations Live. If you all came in late, you missed part of the conversation with Hernan, don't worry. Thanks to our online friends, you all can catch the replay right after we go off the air. The link is already available through our social media site. So head over to Facebook.com/Cyrus Webb or go over to Twitter.com/Cyrus Webb. If you click on the link there, you can listen to the show completely for free and share it with your friends from there too. Until next time, I'm your host, Cyrus Webb, saying as always, enjoy your day, enjoy your life, enjoy your world. Make sure you take out time to enjoy some good music as well as a great book. Thank you all for choosing Conversations Live today. You all make it a great one.